Union Building, room 321, Las Vegas. So we'll have breakfast, burritos, and pozole, all gratis también, at 9 a.m. to present our cuentos and community cuentos and discussion. Dr. Romero will be speaking, Max Trujillo, myself, Ivan Tapia, and a youth representative to talk about how to protect our public lands and how to get involved in the protection of our public lands. So I invite you all. I hope I see you guys there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, the agenda manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, you will have a handout that the staff put together to explain specific details on the 2017-2018 legislative session. On the first page, we have a list of our 2018 capital outlay requests. This list was created when we had our legislative brunch at Public Works. We had several departments that presented, the detention center, IT, road department, and so forth. So on the first list, we had a total of $3.2 million in capital outlay requests. The first one was for detention center, 30,000 detention center, fiber optic line 20,000, 200,000 for equipment at the sheriff's department, and so forth. So we had a total of $3.2 million. So then under the guidance of Alex Tafoya and also Morris Madrid, if you turn to the second page, the page 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and 7 are samples of capital outlay request forms that we submitted. Now, this one here is an example from Senator Pete Campos, but we also submitted capital outlay request forms for Senator Stefanix, Representative Dodge, Representative Salazar, and so forth. So each representative from our delegation received a capital outlay request form. And then if you turn to page 8, we have a list of the Legislative Council Services 53rd Legislature Second Session Capital Outlay Request. Now this document here was a request before the governor signed anything. So this is a request from our legislatures, and you have a breakdown of San Miguel County. So in here you have a list of, it has New Mexico Hines University, Acequias, and so forth. So on page 8 you have the list of everything for San Miguel County. And then on page 9, you will see in the highlighted area of what was requested from San Miguel County. And then on page 10, and then I'll ask Alex and Morris to say a few words after this presentation. On page 10, you have Senator Campos submitting a proposal, and also another proposal on the next page for the mechanical biological treatment program and a fire station in Tecolote. Most of the requests that were submitted to Senator Pete Campos and Representative Salazar, if you look at the first page, we were looking at close to $3.2 million. But after speaking to our representatives, they only have so much money allocated per senator and per representative that they can give to the county. So at this time, I would like to ask Alex and Morris to say a few words and explain to the commission what the governor vetoed and what the governor passed.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good afternoon.
Hello.
I didn't study for this quiz, but I think I can go from memory. We, I guess we were kind of successful in some of the appropriations that we got, considering the amount of money that was available. And this year, for each representative, it was about $500,000. For each senator, it was a little over $1 million. As you all know, it gets cut into three pieces: Senate, House, Governor. So the governor did veto funding that had been requested through, I don't know through which party, and it was for a community center in the valley. That funding was vetoed, line item vetoed by the governor, probably because it was a small amount, it wasn't an entire project, and it didn't have a design attached to it. The other veto was for, help me with that. It was,
7,000 for the playground, was it the 7,000?
oh, it was for the family services facility, and it was only about $7,800. And that one, generally anything $10,000 or under is going to get vetoed by the governor, because her theory is that if the project itself doesn't last longer or as long as the bonds that are going to pay for it, she's going to line item veto it because it's a supply or it's a maintenance issue. It's not a long-term project. So those two were vetoed by the governor. The ones that were approved by the House, Senate, and signed by the governor was the first and most important one was Public Works got about $108,000 for equipment and machinery. And that's broad enough so that we'll have the discretion in deciding what type of machinery or equipment we get. We could include some new trash bins for that. We have some ideas that we can buy some machinery to make our road department a little more efficient and effective. The appropriations request for the detention center was approved for the flooring. The appropriations request for the fiber optic line was approved. And those were the main ones. There was also some funding approved for an MBT, microbiological treatment tumbler system. And that one was at the request of Senator Campos. That's an idea that has been around for a while, mainly spearheaded by Lorenzo Flores, and I think we'll be working with Dr. Luis Ortiz on that. So that's another project we'll be involved in Public Works and in the county. And that's a really quick overview that I have.
Good afternoon. I don't have too much more to add to what Mr. Madrid said. We did get a legislative appropriation of $20,000 for a road, the roads A2 and A3 in the Las Despensas area. The road projects that we submitted requests for were not funded, and $20,000 isn't a whole lot of money. So we've been involved in this legislative session procedure for quite some time. What I found different this year as compared to previous years is that we met with our legislators, as we always do each year, made our request, gave them our priorities, and a couple of the legislators didn't seem to stick to that, to our request. And the reason I mention that is because we have a former legislator in the audience right now, and that's Mr. Richard Miguel. We did the same process when he was a legislator, when he was a representative, that we did this year. And the difference being is that when Mr. Miguel was in the legislature and a request came in, he contacted the county manager to find out, is this one of your requests? Do you support that request? And so that was sort of lacking this year, especially from our senior senator. So we were kind of blindsided with a couple of the projects that did get funded. So there's that communication was not as good this year as it has been in previous years. But aside from that, there wasn't a whole lot of money for the legislature to hand out, so we'll do what we can. The sheriff department did get $70,000 as well for 2 vehicles, but unfortunately, $70,000 isn't enough to buy 2 vehicles. But I'm sure the sheriff's department will work with the county manager to address that. And we're not going to send any money back by any means. We'll work with what we received with the county manager's direction and your direction as well.
Thank you, Mr. Tafoya.
I have a question. Chairman, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Madrid, did you say Governor vetoed the request for for San Miguel del Vado land grant, the community center?
Yes.
That's she vetoed that one, the
She vetoed that
25,000? Oh, really?
Yes, she ran out of veto that one.
Okay, and I know I was real concerned. I've been watching that center and hoping that they would be providing the services that they had not provided because of their problems they've been having. So this is going to help that. So I don't know if there's another plan and if the county's involved with them or trying to seek alternate funding or doing something.
Commissioner, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lubery, is this the same lady that we met with?
Yes, if I may, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. So yeah, it's Patricia Gallegos. We provide adult education services. Do not
So that's in Villanueva. I'm thinking this
It's
is San Miguel del Vado. I'm
San
looking at
Miguel
a
del-
different one. I'm looking at its number 4616 on page
Oh,
9.
I'm sorry.
And it says San Miguel del Vado Land Grant, Merced Community Center. And when you said the valley, I don't know if that was that one or what Mr. Olivari is talking about is the Villanueva Center. Those are different. So I'm trying to figure out which
Is
one.
this for 25,000?
Yeah,
That was the one that was vetoed.
this is the one, and that's for San Miguel
Yes.
del Vado. That's San Miguel,
Okay.
not Villanueva.
Oh, okay.
And what you're
I have
talking
them
about?
confused.
Well, what I'm talking about, the community center belonged to San Miguel de Vado land grant.
The one in Villanueva.
Yes.
That's a different one. This is the one that's in San Miguel itself.
I thought they were the same.
No,
No.
there is a community center in Villanueva, and that one is the Villanueva Community Center, and that's where they have computers and
Right.
what do they call it, a venta where they sell clothes and books and stuff for the family. But San Miguel del Vado is in San Miguel, where the church is, and that's where the land grant, the Merced has owned that building, and they were shut down for a while, providing senior services, so they're 2 different
Okay.
community centers and 2 different buildings. So I just wanted to make sure I knew which one we were talking about, and this is the one on this list, the one that she vetoed is San Miguel del Vado.
When they
Was
do the
Villanueva on the
review
list?
at DFA, one of the things that they review for is site control, who owns the property. And if there was an issue there, that could be the reason that she vetoed it.
Oh, okay. But the one that Mr. Olivari is referring to is not on this list, right? That's Villanueva, that's a whole other project, and I don't see that on here. It's not on here, okay.
It says right here, design and construct improvements of community center for San Miguel de Vado land grant, Merced, in Villanueva, San Miguel County.
That's right. It does say in Villanueva, so that's,
Because the San Miguel de Vado land grant owned that building, deeded it to the community center, and she was gonna deed it back to the land grant for CBDG funding.
oh,
She
okay.
didn't get that done in time either, so there is a question on ownership. So it is the one in Villanueva.
It's the one in Villanueva. It says right here Villanueva, okay. Okay, I just want, there we go. Thank you for that clarification. 'Cause it's confusing to me because I didn't know that the Merced owned the both buildings.
Yes, well,
Oh.
they deeded it to the community center,
Okay,
but in order to get this funding and not have to find a physical agent, they would have to deed it back to the land
I
grant,
get it.
which didn't happen timely.
oh,
So in
okay.
order for her to get that funding anyway, she'd have to deed it to the county. Because of the type of funding it is. So stuck
Okay.
between a rock and a hard spot there.
Okay, so anyway, I was just wondering which center it is. That clarified it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madrid and Mr. Tafoya. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, that's all I have under manager's report. At this time, I stand for any questions. you.
Anybody have any questions?
Yes,
No question.
I have a question. So all these bills that, monies that we received, they were all signed by the governor already?
That is correct, and they were signed, and then the bonds, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, we're looking at April?
June.
June.
June the bottom, so the bill was ready around September.
Okay, can you go over the list again, exactly what we got? I know we got some for the detention center. You mentioned a road.
We received $35,000 for fiber line from the main building to the annex, to the assessor, so
For the
$35,000.
detention center.
No, that's for the IT department.
Oh,
We received $20,000 for the detention center. So we're a little short in the detention center because the original request was 30. So we're a little short on the detention center, but we did meet with Miss Melinda Gonzalez, and we should be able to take care of that request.
okay.
And then we received $70,000 for 2 police units in the sheriff's department. But like Mr. Tafoya mentioned, we may not have enough money for 2 vehicles, but we will work with the sheriff's department on that. And then we received $108,000 for public works.
108 for what?
$108,000 for public works,
For public works.
for public works.
That's 105,844.
And you did mention a road in the dispensers, that somebody applied for money?
$20,000 for a road in Las Despensas.
Okay.
Mr. Madrid, was that approved as well, the $20,000 for the road?
Yes, it wasn't our request, but it was approved and signed by the governor.
Okay. Is that it?
That's
Is
it,
that all we
sir.
got?
That's it.
So what was the total, Mr. Martinez?
Over approximately $205,000.
What was the total we got?
That's the total. A little over 205.
That's not-
Not for all of us.
Is that it, Dr. Martinez? All right, moving on.
Wait, I have one more question. In this packet on package of capital outlay, what happened to the $2,049,000 for the first responder training facility? Is that still in the works? We didn't get any funding for that one? And is that on hold?
To my understanding, we did not get any funding. That stayed in committee.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, moving on, under item number 2, memorandum of understanding between MSG, LC4, and San Miguel County to combat opioid epidemic. Commissioner Martinez?
He said, Mr. Okay, so this is a memorandum of understanding between MSG, LC4, and San Miguel County to combat opioid epidemic. Background information: New Mexico drug overdose death rate has risen by over 300% in the last 20 years. The 2015 drug overdose death rate in New Mexico was 24.8%, 100,000 population, whereas the rate in the United States was 16.3. Even more alarming are the rates for our local tri-county areas. The drug overdose death rates for 2011 through 2015 for Mora were 47.3. San Miguel County was 37.2, and Guadalupe County was 26.2 per 100,000 population. Drug addiction has affected our friends, our families from every walk of life and demographic. MSG LC4 seeks to establish a formal partnership with local partners to address this epidemic. Actions requested by the Commission. Review and approve the memorandum of understanding between Mora, San Miguel, Guadalupe, Local Behavioral Health Collaborative, MSG LC4, and San Miguel County to address the opioid epidemic.
Need a motion to approve.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner Padilla, second.
Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Varela, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Under item number C, is your informational purposes only, multi-jurisdictional mass casualty incident plans. Mr. Maestra.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Dr. Martinez, Ms. Gonzalez. The Office of Emergency Management has done some research into MCI plans from throughout the country, and we've narrowed them down to plans that resemble our jurisdiction and our resources. We have then composed a framework for these plans, and our next step is to bring together each of the subject matter experts within the responding agencies to formulate a plan that's achievable. Again, this plan encompasses the villages of Pecos, City of Las Vegas, and all of San Miguel County. We will now be scheduling multiple meetings to discuss and finalize the MCI plan, get it adopted and implemented into each of these jurisdictions. And those meetings will start at the beginning of this coming Monday.
Any questions from Mr. Maestra?
Thank you.
For informational purposes, thank you, Mr. Maestra.
Thank you.
Item number 4, Fire Marshal Report, informational purposes. Mr. Duran. Chief Duran.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the Commission. Today, I just want to brief you a little bit about some incidents that have occurred over the last couple of weeks. Over the last about 2 weeks, our county departments have responded to 3 significant wildland fires. One was named the Hobo Fire, which was 466 acres. Shortly after that, we responded to the 518 Fire, which was 35 acres. And last week, we responded to the Refuge Fire, which was 251 acres. So if you consider, when you look at this, we're talking 752 acres in a matter of a couple of weeks. The conditions are horrible, to say the least, in not only in San Miguel County, but in eastern New Mexico. In looking at the predictive services outlook for our area, not only eastern San Miguel County, but as the months go by, this drought condition is going to continue at the least till the end of June. The predictive services is indicating that they see a peak time frame of, I believe it was May and June for significant fires. So we need to start thinking and preparing for this upcoming wildland season, which normally doesn't start in February. It's not a common time of year for us. So, and I mentioned these things today because coming before you, hopefully by next month, a couple of items that I'd like to discuss and probably bring to you is implementing open burn restrictions, a mutual aid agreement. I've met with the fire administrator from Mora County. They've already drafted a mutual aid agreement. We've edited it. I've sent it over to the attorney for review. And not only for wildland fires, but for other emergencies. And if you recall, in January, there was a mass casualty incident. We're all addressing this mass casualty incident. For that mass casualty incident that occurred in January on the interstate, that's one of the agencies that responded as well as Mora County EMS services and fire departments responded into San Miguel County. So we want to work together to develop a mutual aid agreement so that we have an understanding of when we have the need, we can call on them, and vice versa. If they have the need, they can call on us. Another thing that we may, to put in the back of your minds until the time comes is, fireworks restrictions. That may be something that we're going to be having to look at in the near future. There are timelines that we need to follow when we want to discuss fireworks restrictions. Right now, it's a little too early to implement anything. We have to do it within a certain number of days prior to the sale dates of fireworks, which is June 20th, I believe, is the first the start of the sale date for fireworks. So a month before that, we probably need to revisit how the weather conditions are and possibly implementing some fireworks restrictions. of the 3 fires that I did mention, we did, all 3 were accidental in nature. None of these fires were intentionally set. From the simplest thing as from one of these fires was caused by someone out welding. And as simple as that sounds, that's how bad the conditions are right now. So that's why we need to start being a little more proactive, implementing restrictions and preparing for this upcoming season. That's all I really have, unless you have any other questions that we go to. So.
I have a question. Can you address the question? You have a question for him? Yes. That Hobo ranch fire was not too far from my place, 5 miles away. And that ranch doesn't usually do the strike fire fires. And I don't know if they were burning that day or not, but the question is, when somebody is enough to strike and burn on a day that's a red flag, warning day, do they get cited for that? It seems like people are doing this over and over, and the county have to absorb the cost of responding, or who pays for that?
I don't know what that,
The cost, the way wildland fires happen or play out is as they grow and other resources are called, which on all 3 of these fires, so one of the resources that was called out was New Mexico State Forestry. Once they arrive, they, in most cases, will take over the incident, and at that time, they actually absorb the cost. We actually will bill the state for our resources that respond. If they do anything from there to collect their part, I'm not aware of that. I know, and because all 3 of these so far have been accidental, I know if it was arson, they do pursue criminal charges and also compensation for all the resources that are out there.
if you could, I'm going to ask you to stay on top of that. Last year, we found out the hard way that when you want to propose a firework ban, that you have to do it timely, because we found out last year that when we tried to do it, we were too late. So,
Yes, no, I'm definitely going to stay on top of that.
Any other questions for Chief Duran? No. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Under item number 5, we have a resolution 03-13-18-RA01, addition of Postal Santiago Road, a proposed name change for a road. Mr. Purdy, are you in the audience? All right. At this time, we have put on the agenda, Mr. Garcia has brought to us a petition. Mr. Tafoya, are you going to present that? That's not, I have Mr. Purdy that was supposed to address it. So Mr. Garcia has brought me a petition here with some signatures protesting this move on the name change of this road. And what I told Mr. Garcia prior to the meeting, I told the commissioners here that we're probably going to have to, Mr. Trujillo, are you addressing that?
No, sir, I'll take whatever direction you decide.
So what we have done is, because there's been a protest and it involves a legal issue, we're going to have to table it for today's meeting until we get a legal opinion from our council.
I'm satisfied with that decision.
Okay, we're okay with that?
A move to table item number 5.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Olivares to table item number 5, second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Under item number 6, solid waste ordinance SMC-02-10-04OR. Informational purposes only, presented by Justin Garcia, Chief Deputy Treasurer.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
No.
So I've been working on this ordinance. It's making changes to the existing ordinance. There's a few just word changes. Basically, on page 1, we have to change the date. I have these numbered to you want to follow along. So page 1 is just basically we need to change the date when it's going to be amended. So just going to update the index, that's page 4, I believe, to fit the definitions and what sections are on what page when I'm done with the direction that I get from you all for the amendments. So on page 7, I had a recommendation to change the name of the convenience centers to collection centers. That's a simple change, but it makes sense because it's where we're collecting the solid waste for transport to the facilities. On page 7, I also want to create a position in the solid waste billing department. It would be the solid waste billing supervisor. That position would be responsible for the adjustments, making payment arrangements with the customers, everything that a supervisor would take care of in a timely manner. You would also have face-to-face interaction with the customers at the time that they go in. So I think that would be good. It would be a position that would split the chief deputy treasurer positions with the solid waste billing supervisor. So I believe that would have to go through HR and do that. So it would fall under the chief deputy treasurer to also carry that title for solid waste billing supervisor. I have on page 8, we added a private commercial hauler. We added the commercial to a private hauler because they're going to be providing a service and they are a business. So that private hauler is going to actually have a business license with the county, and they have to follow different guidelines throughout their operation with the county and guidelines that the state provides. So those are also listed in the changes that I made in the ordinance. I have an additional definition for, I have uninhabitable residence. On the exemptions for billing, that is something that, if you have an uninhabitable residence, we're not going to bill you for solid waste services. So this kind of gives you a definition as to what it is. You just can't live in that place, whether it be, falling down, there's no utilities, whatever the case may be, it has to fit in that guideline to qualify for that billing exemption. So that's why I added that definition. I've removed the rental unit section of the definitions. Also, we want to bill throughout the year for the residences that we have in the county. This looked like there was only one exception for the residences where if they were not being rented at the time, we would stop the billing, whereas there are several homeowners in the county that have temporary residence in the county, and we bill them all year. So we want to be fair and continue this for each premises in the county.
Excuse me, I have a question on that, Mr. Chairman. So does that mean if there are only part-time residents for, like in Peckaway, people that are only there for the summer months, and even in the canyon here, does that mean they'll only be billed for those months that they're inhabiting the place, or they all will be billed for the year? I didn't get that.
Well, I have a fix for that. I have a fix for that coming up.
Okay.
So I want to get that approved and in there.
Okay, thank you.
So what I also did here is created the seasonal residence permit.
Oh, okay.
So that addresses that question. The definition of a seasonal residence would be 30 consecutive days, no more than 90 days.
Oh, okay.
So that does fit into that summertime, wintertime, whatever season they're actually there. So I did create an application for that and what the permit would look like in the packet that I provided. So I think it would be a good idea because it would create a permit, we would get a one-time fee for that permit, and when they would use the facilities, they would pay a per bag fee. So I know a lot of times, I mean, it's a couple of people, they're not gonna have a whole lot, so that $75 permit fee would, cover them all year. So we're not gonna lose out on a billing opportunity for those residences.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Rodriguez.
So, per bag fee, those are for manned stations, correct?
Yes,
So we have unmanned stations,
Right.
particularly in the canyon, where we do have a lot of seasonal visitors, and it's unlocked and it's not manned, so how would you?
I think that's where the permit fee would kind of make up for the
Okay.
unmanned stations. And there's a lot of solid waste dumping that we're not capturing at the moment, but if we can create some sort of revenue and capture as many premises and residences as we can at this point, we can start building on that in the future. Right now, the changes that I'm proposing they're baby steps. Right now, it's not going to change the whole solid waste situation that we're in, but it's changes that we're going to start with, and moving forward, we can continue making changes.
I have a follow-up, I'm sorry. I have a follow-up on what Commissioner Olivari was talking about, and I could see that in the canyon, in Pecos Canyon, we have the same thing where the Forest Service used to have dumpsters, and then they took them away because of resources and money. And they were complaining that the residents were putting their trash in there, but I could see the opposite happening where people are bringing their trash from the campgrounds, the campers, and they don't have Forest Service depository, so they're putting them in the county dumpster. Is there something that you can do with the Forest Service to see if they can maybe I know that they're always crying, and they don't have a lot of resources either, but maybe since it's their clients and that are, you know what I'm saying, maybe with the Forest Service, try to see if they can work with you on this?
Can I speak to you with that?
Oh,
What
yeah.
we do in the canyon. The
Okay.
Forest Service bought and purchased our bins because, so they could
Because
use
of
them.
that.
Because of
Okay,
that.
okay.
So they did the cost of purchasing our bear-proof bins, and then we do the collection. That's how we did it in the canyon anyway.
Okay, I just think that that's an issue. I know in my canyon and Pecos and our area where we have a lot of people coming in, especially in the summertime, and just so, to eliminate just trashing out the whole river and the whole countryside, that we do need collection, and I'm just not sure how that's being handled with the,
I think in one situation, we just worked with the Villanueva campground for their services. What we're going to do is kind of like a budget billing for them. I mean, if we could work with other entities in that.
and their state, right?
aspect.
So then if you can work with the
Right,
federal.
they were getting billed per tonnage or, that, at that rate. So what they were looking at is, working with us so they can get like a constant fee for their budget, throughout the year, that way they know what they're gonna be throwing. Throughout this year, we'll track what they're throwing. If it increases or decreases, we'll go with that for the next year for them. If we can work with them that way, we might be able to work something out and maybe create an account for them that way. But if it's an unmanned station, it's kind of hard to keep track of that. So, I mean, if they purchase a permit, maybe we could do something for them that way. But, that might be something to look into.
Mr. Garcia, I have just a comment. You stated on this proposed amendment that you've done quite a bit of work already. This was,
I'm dreaming trash.
we needed it for a long time. I'm going to ask you a question regarding delinquencies and debts that are owed, and there's quite a bit that the county is owed, is that right?
There are quite a few accounts, yes.
Are we going to address this in this document, or?
I am addressing it now as far as when we're going to start placing liens on properties. So there wasn't a time limit or a dollar amount where we would go out and file a lien on property. Another point that Mr. Romero, the attorney, mentioned was filing a lien on the property with the clerk's office is good and fine, but there's really no fee. So what we're looking at is looking at the top 10 delinquent each time that we file liens. File 10 liens with district court, and then the rest would be with the clerk, and maybe that would kind of kick things into where we are recouping some of that money. I am making changes, I want to make changes to how we do that as far as 24 months, which is, the 2 years. It's not a whole lot of money at that point, but starting, if we make that change, we would go ahead and do that at that point. 24 months delinquent, we would place a lien on the property. What we have right now is, we just took over this department, so we're still learning as we go. There are some properties out there with liens, but they're still delinquent, so there's no real action that we can take to recoup that money. There's a provision for a 10% penalty on delinquent bills, but to my knowledge at this point, it's not inactive. Everything that is owed is just at a base amount. So the penalty is not in there. The interest that is supposed to be at 10% is not in there. So that is another change that I'm proposing to drop that 10% and add a fee at the end of the collection period, where if they do pay off their bill, they would have to pay that penalty to get the lien removed as well as paying the bill.
Do we have any idea how much we're owed?
At this point, I'm not too sure.
Probably.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, our records show that there's like $1.9 million owed, but there's also a lot of properties that we think have been billed over the course of time where there's really not a true property to it. So maybe at one point in time, I went in through trash, so somebody created me an account and they keep on billing me, but I was actually from California and I was just passing through. So we have a lot of accounts like that. So there's going to have to be a lot of research done to really compare our assessor system to the people that we're actually billing to determine if some of those accounts that we've been billing for the longest time are accurate accounts, and to find people who might be missing as well. So there's a lot going to be involved in that.
How about an amnesty program, something like that, where they could come in and maybe half and probably take commission action to forego the other amount, but at least we can make some collections and start them on the right track. Is that a possibility?
I've thought of that. I've ran it with the rest of the staff, and I think it would be a good idea to have an amnesty period for those bills, and then with the further research, adjust the bills that, there's no one attached to them. I don't know if we'd be willing to lose that much money on this end, but I think going forward, if we did it now and build properly going forward, we would recoup that in some time. So I do think an amnesty period would be good. We would have to reach out to the whole county, get it on the radio, advertise it somehow to where they're delinquent and they don't want a lien placed in district court. This is your amnesty time. Come in and take care of at least half or whatever the amount we're willing to accept.
So what is the process for protest? And, I lost my house in 2014. I never got billed, and all of a sudden last year I get a bill all the way back to where my house burned. That's when I stopped paying, because that's when my house burned. But for some reason I got billed, and I still don't have a house there, So what's a protest policy,
As far as that situation, it should have been, the billing should have stopped once your resident was gone.
I turned the fire report in and everything, and it did stop, and then last year all of a sudden I get this bill out of
So the billing
nowhere.
continues? We can look at everything at a case-to-case basis. And if it makes sense, of course, we can make adjustments.
Well, what's the process to protest is what I'm asking.
At this point, there's not come in and see me, and we'll see what your bill looks like. There's not a formal protest
Not a form to fill out,
process.
okay.
Right, but that's
And
something.
there should be, correct?
That's something that I can work on putting in here, but at this point, come in and see me and we can.
No, I hadn't gotten a bill in years and years and years, and all of a sudden I got it.
Mr. Chairman,
But it sounds like it's.
I think the only way that we're going to be able to solve this issue, it is not going to be a short-term problem, it's going to be a long-term problem. The only way that I can see it, we've been dealing with this for years and years and years, to be able to find out who's who and who's paying and who's not paying, we're actually going to have to hire one person, I think either part-time or full-time, to actually go physically out there in the field. And what Melinda's talking about is, yeah, there's $1.2 million of bills, but nobody knows if anyone lives on that property or not. It could be an abandoned ranch, and we're wasting money sending a bill because there's no residents.
Well, what I have right now is, I'm gonna work with I have a plan to capture all the residential properties that actually have residences on there. I'm gonna work with the assessor's office in May, once they're done with their protest period, and that is something I do have on my agenda to capture as many residences as I can.
And it will, but I still think that you still need to get somebody on the field. I really believe that. We've tried just about everything else, and that would be a big help, what you're talking about, but it could also be a ranch that's been abandoned. It'll show there, but it could be a ranch that's been abandoned for 20 years. Someone died off or somebody moved out of town, and we're still getting billed. That's why I say that for about a year, I think if we could hire someone just to go out there and physically look at all the ones that are in question physically, I think that's the only way we can actually get a real count. And I've been saying that for a few years, and no one listens, but that's the only way that we're going to be able to attack this problem. And not only that problem, there's another problem that we have that this person could probably address, and that's the illegal dumpers. We have people, like for example, in my area, we have an agreement with Mora. Some people from Mora are dumping in our dumpsters, and we're collecting from them. But then there's a few other people that are not paying to Mora or San Miguel, and they're dumping through their family members. So that's why I say, until we get somebody to physically go out there and investigate all the billings that are in question, we'll never catch up.
Well, there is a provision in here already for a code enforcement officer in the existing ordinance. We do have a provision for
that was the code enforcement officer for 7 years. And the code enforcement officer has so much work to do that the code enforcement officer doesn't have time to dedicate just to the solid waste department. If he would dedicate his time to the solid waste department, it would take all his time. And he would have to ignore the permitting, buildings, illegal dumping and all that in properties. He would have to probably abandon all that other work just to go, because solid waste alone will take up all the time. So that's what I'm suggesting, is at some point we hire one person, either part-time or full-time, whatever the commission decides, just to go help you track down all the numbers. And there's a lot of people like Rock that are not living in their property, they don't have a house, but they're being built. And there's a lot more people like that. So that's in that area, that's what I would say.
Yes, thank you. I agree with a lot of what's being said here, and I'd like to add to what Chairman Nahat said, and that is about amnesty. I know that it's a big decision, and we'd have to have a lot of discussion, you internally with the staff level, and then through maybe perhaps a commission action. But I saw this work with the Santa Cruz Irrigation District when I worked for the Acequias. They had people that were in arrears for many years, and they were really in the red. And they offered an amnesty program, and they got in the black. So they figured out a time, and then that really kicked it in, and people started paying again. So it worked in that organization, and they did presentations to others how that could be done. And following up on what Mr. Padilla said, I think it's really important, and I know part of it too is staffing. I'm in Pecos, and we have good staff out there, but one guy's on the machine and busy, and we have a part-time guy that goes to help him. So in the meantime, they're not checking, they don't have time to be checking of who has a bill and who's not, and we're very close to the county line and Santa Fe County line in that end. So we have similar issue there with people, and some of the neighbors in Pecos have called me complaining. They say, there's people from Santa Fe County are coming and dumping in San Miguel County, and they're not paying their part either. So both ways, where we have people that are being billed that shouldn't be, and then we have people that are dumping there that should be billed and aren't. So I don't know. I'm glad that you're addressing it. This document looks like you've done a lot of work, and I commend you for it, but We still have a lot to take care of in this. It's a big issue. I keep getting calls. Besides roads, I get a lot of calls about this issue too.
Also, on another question, do we address the tire issue? And specifically, what I'm saying is when the billing was done on tires, for dumping tires, back then, a 16-inch tire was a big tire, no? It was like a 10-ply tire. 18-inch tire was almost like a 2-ton truck tire. But nowadays, you have 18-inch and 20-inch tires that are just thin, and that small on cars. And I don't know if the billing system has adjusted to all that, or we're still charging like by size. Because it surely, if you have a new car, they have the low-profile tires, but they're 18s.
Right.
And why are they going to pay for a big tire when it's just a small tire like that? That's another issue that we need to address, is the billing. How are we billing on the tires? Because if I go through a small tire, I'm not going to pay for a semi-tire because it's a 20-inch tire or a 22, but it's a small tire because new cars are low-profile tires.
That's one of the proposals
have you
that
addressed that issue?
I'm making now, is to actually remove the rates out of the ordinance and have a separate solid waste rate schedule that would be presented to the commission and approved. That way we can take every issue with as far as rates go. That would be something that would be approved every year separate from the ordinance. And that would be a lot more flexible and be timely as far as the year goes. You can make the changes each year, and that would be posted online at the collection centers, and you could do inserts in the mailers with the bills. So that's another, like I said, another proposal that I want to do is remove the rates out of the ordinance and have that separate.
Great idea.
Mr. Garcia, and then also you have distributed in your packet here information regarding homeowners disposal kits.
Yes.
In that in this presentation?
Yes, I just actually had to deal with that last week. We do have a customer that came in and said, well, I don't throw trash. I bury it on my property. And I asked if they have a permit because it does allow for that in the ordinance. And she doesn't have a permit. So I had to look into the process, and I did get a response, the email that's attached there from the state, and the application process and the guidelines that they have to follow to get the permit for the homeowner's permit. So I did get some information on that today.
Good work. That's quite a bit already.
Yeah.
You should bring it for the commission for approval probably within the next couple of meetings or so.
Well, I'm hoping for by May commission meeting that I can have something solid and concrete. The reason why I want to run these by you today is to kind of get a feel as to how you feel about the changes that I'm proposing. Again, like another proposal that I'm making is a veterans, not an exemption, but adding veterans to the residential discounted rates. That's something that wasn't done before, but I think the assessors offer that for the assessments. We can offer a veterans discount. We would go in along with the Medicaid, Medicare, and the over 65 group. That would be a discounted rate. And that would be very easy to track because we'd use the assessor's information for their residents. If they have a veteran's exemption on their assessment, then they would automatically qualify for the discounted rate. So that's something I want to add.
Something else, Mr. Chairman. Something else that would help out is on the input of this, on this ordinance, is if we would get all the solid waste employees and bring them in for a meeting and have them review all the changes, because they might have a lot of input that we don't know of, because they see it day to day, and they deal with it on a daily basis. So maybe a good idea would either visit with all of them or bring them in on a meeting. I think you have a meeting every 2 weeks. And maybe let them have some input into this ordinance because, like I said, they're the ones that are dealing with it on a daily basis. And they probably have more issues than we have that we don't know of that they have, you know what I'm saying? At least to get their input.
We would, we would have to work with the Public Works Department to facilitate that meeting with with actual field employees. Mainly what I deal with, or who I work with, is the building department. There's the physical out in the field part of the solid waste department, and then the billing department. So as far as the practices in the field, I think Arnold would probably be the best to speak to that.
Because you'd be surprised the stuff that they can tell you about what's going on and how everything's going, and the issues and suggestions that they bring out. I've had time to sit down with some of them, of employees, on meetings, and then that's what they, suggestions, and there's a lot of input.
Right, and we do get a lot of phone calls from customers about every issue that you can think of, as far as neighbors not throwing their trash and whatnot. And I mean, there's only so much we can do at this point. We can make calls to the sheriff's department for illegal dumpers and things like that, where we will take those calls and forward them to the sheriff's department.
That's a big problem that we're having now. There's no follow-up. There's an ordinance, and we have an ordinance as to how to enforce it, but there's no follow-up. I mean, you can send them a letter, and then we need a sheriff or the code enforcement officer, if he was obliged to give citations, to follow up, and we just haven't been doing that.
Right, and that the provision for the code enforcement it would allow them to give citations. And I mean, I don't know what department they would fall under, whether the sheriff's department or public works, or how that would work. But I'll get with the manager to.
So are you saying that we do already have the statute in place?
It's in here already.
It's accepted by the municipal judge or the magistrate judge?
It would be a fine, and I do have the guidelines
The
for
way that
that.
would work, Mr. Garcia, because I have some knowledge on this, the county ordinances aren't really enforceable because there is not a county judge. Like the city has their own municipal ordinances, and they can enforce those. Maybe littering, under the littering state statute, they're enforceable, but it would have to go to a magistrate court for state charges, because a magistrate cannot enforce county violations. It's not covered under the dumping code.
Never thought of that.
Yeah, because
We had that problem because I tell you this because when I was a magistrate, several people from the county came over to see if we could somehow enforce the ordinances that they had. And we were in the process of trying to set up a system to where we could, because we would have to factor in court costs and things like that, and who gets the money that the county, they would have to separate it. It involved a lot, and I never had gotten anywhere, but it's going to take some doing to do that.
Right.
To get somebody to enforce the county laws.
If I'm not mistaken,
Littering, things like that, those are fall under state statute.
Planning and zoning.
but the sheriff would have to issue the citations?
Planning and zoning ordinances too.
Right now,
There's not state violation.
Commissioner Nahas, the sheriff would have to issue the citation for magistrate to accept
But
it?
only if it's done under state
State
violation.
statute.
State violation, and state violation normally don't cover things like that unless it's illegal dumping or littering.
Right.
Or the state statute that cover those.
Right.
Yeah, because the handout I provided would be, it is the New Mexico statute, but that's the wording that I have in there.
I have one more thing. Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. There's an issue with Pecos. I don't know if you've been called about the safety issue with barricades that have been put in front. I guess someone fell in a dumpster, and there was a different kind of just a bar in between where you park your vehicle and the dumpsters. And so anyway, because of safety, I understand the county went in and put these like barriers that are used in highways or for parking. They're kind of about maybe 3 feet high. I don't know if you've been out there and seen them, but I've had a lot of complaints about those, that people have a hard time lifting it, and I don't know. So I understand that they were looking at, I don't know if it's the department before they went over to you, that we're looking at how they can improve that with address, and I think I saw Dawn, she was here, but anyway, to address the safety concerns, but also make it acceptable, I know that, accessible for people, it's been an issue. So if you could go out there, and if you need me to go with you and visit that, it's been an issue.
Sure. I'm going to have Arnold.
Okay, thank you.
Just for information, good afternoon, Commission, Mr. Chair. For your information, we're still, through our department, taking care of the maintenance at the facilities and also the direction to the employees. So we do have a plan in place. We purchased material to redo the railing completely at that facility.
Okay.
So we're going to restructure it and provide a safe area for the residents.
Thank you.
So
Do you know
that's
when
under
that
the
might
plan.
be?
I'm planning on starting that probably this next week, starting on Monday. We have to purchase a special tool for cutting concrete and to be able to drill through the concrete and be able to anchor post and make it a good solid system there.
So thank you. Thank you so much
So it is in
for
the
that.
process and it will be taken and addressed here pretty
Thank you, and I
quickly.
couldn't remember, you were the one that's taking care of it. Thank you so much, Arnold, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Garcia, do you have anything?
I got a lot left, but if you have questions, I mean, I can, do you have the packet, if you want to?
We're looking at, but anything else that you want to present today?
As far as the changes, I think what I can do is have the actual amended copy ready in a couple of months by the May commission meeting.
All right.
So any other changes that I would be proposing, there's not a whole lot of major differences. The only difference thing that I wanted was the veterans exemption added, and then the seasonal permit. So all the other ones are in here, are changes as far as wording and practice. Because I wanted to make the ordinance be in line with our practices in the office for the billing. And as far as creating that position for the solid waste billing supervisor, that would also aid in getting these issues with the billing on timely.
Also, yeah, just an idea that in order to get an accurate count as to your occupied homes, you can go to the San Miguel County co-op occupied homes who's paying for electrical services, things like that, to find an idea of who's actually living in those residences, and that way you can bill accordingly.
Right.
All right, you got it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Under item number 7, public hearing selection of project for CDBG application, Mr. Tafoya.
Good afternoon. The Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG, provides that a public hearing be held or conducted rather, and public comment be accepted in regard to possible projects for a CDBG application. If the public hearing is conducted during a county commission meeting, CDBG requirements require that the county commission adjourn from its regular meeting and then reconvene into the CDBG public hearing, because they require the hearing be its own meeting. So we had a public hearing last Thursday night and accepted comment, but we're also asking that the county commission conduct a public hearing today and first of all adjourn from its current county commission meeting and then call a CDBG public hearing to order.
Are you suggesting that we do that after we complete today's meeting, or do it at this time?
At this time.
Pardon?
Adjourn the meeting at this time and proceed with the meeting?
Yes.
or after?
Yes. Adjourn the meeting and then call to order a CDBG public
Motion
hearing.
to adjourn this meeting to proceed into the meeting requested by Mr. Tafoya.
I so move.
Moved by Commissioner Padilla.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Varela. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And this meeting is adjourned. We will proceed with the
Public hearing.
public meeting. Well,
Yes. So we would like to ask that the county commission conduct a public hearing and accept public comment in regard to projects to be considered for a CDBG application. We also like to ask that the county commission consider any of the projects that are submitted, including those projects submitted by county staff, and then select a project. I need to read a little bit of information in regard to the CDBG program. Just take me a couple of minutes here. The purpose and history of the Community Development Block Grant Program. It's broken into program objectives. First objective is to benefit principally low and moderate income families. Next objective is to aid in the prevention of slum or blight. The third objective is to meet urgent community development needs where an existing condition poses a threat to the health and welfare of the community and other financial resources are not available. Last fiscal year, I believe it was approximately $12 million of funding that was awarded and available for CDBG programs, or projects rather. Eligible applicants are all counties and incorporated municipalities except for the cities of Albuquerque, Las Cruces, Santa Fe, Farmington, and Rio Rancho. Water and mutual domestic associations may apply for a planning grant through their county. Sanitation districts, public nonprofit groups, etc. cannot apply directly for assistance, but may apply through an eligible municipality or county. Indian pueblos and tribes receive funding directly from HUD. Eligible activities include community infrastructure such as water and sewer systems, street improvements consisting of roads, streets, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, traffic control devices, municipal utilities, housing, which includes real property acquisition, rehabilitation, clearance, provision of public facilities to increase housing opportunities, code enforcement, historic preservation activities. A maximum of $65,000 in CDBG funds per home can be used on rehab or repair activities. Public service capital outlay includes community centers, senior citizen centers, community facilities designed to provide health, social, recreational, and other services to residents. Economic development assists communities in creating or retaining jobs for low and moderate income persons, creation or retention of businesses owned by community residents. Emergency addresses life-threatening situations resulting from disasters or threats to health and safety, must have appropriate state agency concurrence. Local resources must be non-existent or unavailable. Planning grant assistance must be used for a comprehensive plan if there has not been a current or updated plan within the last 5 years. Feasibility studies, base mapping, aerial photography, GIS systems, development of codes and ordinances, and there's a limit of $50,000 for that, for planning activities. Colonias, communities must be within 150 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border and be designated by the county or municipality where it is located. Ineligible activities include city halls or county courthouses, general operation and maintenance expenses of public facilities. The only exception is if the courthouse is not ADA compliant. Then CDBG funding can be used for that, to make a county courthouse ADA compliant. Housing allowance payments and mortgage subsidies are ineligible. Expenditures for political purposes, costs involved in preparing applications and securing funding is also an ineligible activity. Program requirements: applicants must conduct at least one public hearing prior to selecting a project to advise citizens of estimated CDBG funds available. types of projects available, obtain recommendations from citizens regarding community development and housing needs. A minimum of 3 hearings is recommended. Citizen participation must be encouraged with emphasis on low and moderate income persons by publishing a public hearing notice in English and Spanish and using other means such as media or posting flyers in an effort to reach the public. So we did that. We also posted it on the county website. And then we maintain a mailing list of residents in the county, and we sent them notices as well. Recommendations from the public are to be considered when the project is selected at an official, regularly scheduled meeting of the governing body, such as today. Each CDBG application must address at least one of the 3 national objectives. The activity must benefit low and moderate income persons, the prevention of slum and blight, and must meet urgent or life-threatening community development needs. Application requirements. The application requests are limited to $500,000 without certified cost estimates, or $750,000 with a certified cost estimates. Planning grants are limited to $50,000. We may also submit a phased request. Applicant must meet threshold requirements. Any grantee with 1 or more active grants in the infrastructure, public service, capital outlay categories, and colonias projects cannot apply for additional funding until the current project is fully closed. Rural applicants include area with, or a county, for example, with 3,000 or less population, and must provide a minimum 5% cash match. Non-rural applicants must provide a 10% cash match. Applicants may request a waiver of the matching requirements in the absence of local resources, or apply for a loan to meet the matching requirement at appropriate interest rates. Applications are scored by rating certain criteria such as description and need, benefit to low to moderate income persons, leveraging citizen participation, planning, feasibility and readiness, user fees and revenues, and cost benefit. The Community Development Council will also take into consideration current economic situations if the entity was funded last year, and if the entity was funded last year, and also application presentation. So with that, we had a public hearing last Thursday evening. We had one individual who attended and submitted a request. We have right now 6 possible projects, and I'll read those, and then after I read those, if we could ask for public comment. We have 6 possible projects. One is the Upper Town San Antonio Road and Drainage. This project is on the ICIP, the Infrastructure Capital Improvements Plan. This project is a possible $500,000 to $750,000 project. Its status currently, because we've been working on this project for a while, but we haven't had the money. We have a preliminary engineering design. We have the required cultural resource inventory completed. That was required by State Historic Preservation Division, and it's currently under review by State Historic Preservation Division. And we have the environmental review exercise, I would call it, in process. Another project was the assessor's annex building heating and cooling system. This is not an eligible project because it houses an elected official. Third project is the Pueblo Volunteer Fire Department septic system for the Villanueva substation and a fire substation in the San Jose area. We would note that there is a funding source available, which is the State Fire Marshal's Office. And the reason I point that out is because if the county submits an application and there's another funding source available, the application will not be considered as well as other applications. The project that we received last week at our public hearing was the Samaritan House rehab to bring the building up to fire code. The Samaritan House is located on Mills Avenue. Bring the building up to fire code and then provide funding for services. We would note that this building is owned by a private individual and is not owned by the county. And also it is situated within the city limits of the city of Las Vegas. Fifth project is a Tri-County Family Justice Center building repairs and improvements to address drainage and erosion issues at the rear of the building, exterior window and door replacement, new carpet, cracks on the exterior walls, and roof repairs. This project is on the county ICIP. This is a possible $300,000 project, and we do have some preliminary costs, architectural costs. This particular project serves a clientele that would fall into the category of limited clientele. And then the last project is the county public health building repairs and expansion, exterior cracks, roof repairs. This project is also on the county's ICIP, and this is a possible $300,000 to $500,000 project, just depending on the scope of work. So those are the projects we have so far. So I would ask that the county commission accept public comment in regard to possible projects, and anybody that wants to make a comment, I would ask that they sign in so we can document that they were here and contributed to the public hearing.
Anybody here to sign in for the project? Mr. Question, Mr. Tapoya, on that Samaritan House, being that it's privately owned, would that not be a violation of the anti-donation clause?
Well, if that project was selected, first of all, it's inside the city limits, so I would ask Morris Madrid if he could provide a little assistance if I needed, because he was the CDBG program manager for local government. But it's inside the city limits and may not qualify for a county application for a couple of reasons. One, it's owned by a private individual, and I explained to the Samaritan House director last week that private individual would actually have to convey ownership of the property over to the county. And then if it's funded and the repairs are made, the county would have to enter into a lease agreement with the Samaritan House at fair market value and lease the building and property over to the Samaritan House. Fair market value would require a lease payment of some sort, and the lease payment would be based on the services that are offered. So there would be a little bit of a glitch in that project, simply because I don't know who owns the property, but that individual would have to agree to basically give up his property. And that would work for other service agencies. The Tri-Family Justice Center building property is owned by the county, and they provide services to individuals in a limited clientele who are considered to be 100% low or moderate income. The public health building is also owned by the county as well. That building was built with a grant from Health and Human Services grant several years ago that the county received. They provide services to a clientele that could be considered limited clientele. We would have to verify. The reason I mentioned limited clientele is because if a road project is selected, we have to go out and do an actual income survey, do a door-to-door survey, and count the number of people that live in each location, in each residence, and determine what their income is. And then there's a little bit of a formula that local government division provides, or worksheet where we would calculate and determine, after the universe has been surveyed, determine if there are 51% or more low or moderate income individuals living in that area. Limited clientele such as a group of individuals served by the Economic Family Justice Center are considered to be 100% lost income. So income survey is not required.
Please state your name.
Tim Hageman, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I work for Secretary Matt Geisel for the Economic Development Department. I'm a regional rep for the 7-county area in this area. I always remind commissioners to consider economic development projects. These are all outstanding projects, and sewer and wastewater are very important in our community, but I just ask you to consider job creation. I participated in the comprehensive planning meetings in Rosciata, Villanueva, and various other communities this last fall. And some of the projects that I kind of understood that could be a possibility in economic development would be a Conchas Dam. They're very concerned about business retention down there, historic preservation with the lodge, and also infrastructure. And we, depending on the project, I'd be happy to work with you and Alex if that's something that you would like to consider. We can work with the community to identify exactly what projects. I helped the community of Conchas Dam apply for the Frontier Main Street application that they submitted in regards to the restoration of the lodge down there. So other projects that we've discussed, Pecos, they'd like to have lodging. Maybe Rowe might be an opportunity to provide water and wastewater in regards to developing an industrial or business park right on the interstate there. And then lastly, Rosciata had a lot of interest in regards to the wood industry, just like the San Miguel Wood Park. In regards to the expansion of David Old out there, that would also be a great candidate in regards to expanding building and infrastructure for that project to grow the jobs. And that's a project that our department can participate in regards to providing LEDA funds in regards to the creation of economic-based jobs for those projects for infrastructure, land, and buildings. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My name is Harold Garcia, and I don't think I need to introduce myself more than that. But anyway, effective today, I think I need to take an interest in what goes on with county issues. And I think that the county commission, because you're applying for CDBG funds, well, when I was here, we did a lot of road improvements. We did improvements to Upper Town. We did improvements to Camp Luna. We did a 2-phase project in Tecolote, the village of Tecolote, and they were very successful projects. I know that Upper Town, Camp Luna, Eliano Road, a lot of those roads have been paved, and they were paved many years ago. So the deterioration has already started. And so I think that in the best interest of strong infrastructure within the county, I think that it would be wise for the county to consider, particularly Country Acres. Country Acres, the upper 8th Street extension, that's a subdivision of probably 500 residents, 500 residential homes, probably a population of 1,500, maybe 2,000 people. And I think that subdivision would serve a good project, CDBG project, maybe the drainage, because you can't build a road until you build a foundation, and the drainage issues on Country Acres are a mess. You know, you drive there after a half-inch rainstorm, and there's areas where the water puddles within the roads, and you know, people are so used to it already that they have to drive around because there's other roads that they can maneuver through, but that's going to continue being a problem if the county doesn't address it. You know, maybe concrete crossings, concrete low water crossings, or, I'm sure the engineer could come up with something because the county does have an engineer. There's professionals that deal with that every day, but I think that that would be a project that would be a wise consideration by the county. And so I'm recommending that drainage improvements to the Country Acres subdivision be considered. Thank you.
Anybody else?
That's the public, everybody else.
Anybody in the public wishing to comment on any of these projects? Commissioner Varela, you have a question?
Yes, a point of clarification. Since we're having this hearing now, we're hearing about these projects, and I'm hearing them about it for the first time. Are we expected to make a decision today, or are we just hearing about these projects and we'll come back to decide later?
Well, initially, I had spoken to the county manager today and told him that if a decision couldn't be made today, that maybe we could get it in the April meeting. But then when I reviewed the timeline for the low to moderate income survey, we have an April 6th timeline for that in regard to getting approval from local government for the type of survey we're going to need, whether it's for limited clientele or a door-to-door survey. So I would ask if a decision be made today, and if not, I would ask if maybe a county commission consider a special meeting to select a project before the end of this month, because we will need some time to present our proposed application to local government and tell them how we're going, if we have to conduct a door-to-door survey, how we're going to conduct that survey and get their approval. So I would ask, that's what I would ask for. In regard to economic development, the application workshop was last Wednesday, and I attended that, and Mr. Madrid and attended it as well, and also Samantha Sandoval. And if I remember correctly, there's approximately $1 million in economic development, in CDBG funds for economic development. And economic development applications can be accepted year-round? Year-round, yes. An economic development application requires a dollar-for-dollar match. So if the county submitted an application for $100,000, for example, we would have to have a $100,000 match, preferably from the business that is going to benefit from that, from those funds. So.
So would that be an in-kind match?
Pardon?
Would that be an in-kind match?
No, cash.
It would be a dollar?
Yes. But, so what I'm saying is an economic development application can be considered at any time. So if direction is given to us to work with Mr. Hageman in determining an eligible business activity, we could start working on that to submit an application. We have to keep in mind it's a dollar-for-dollar match. So
Let me ask you, Mr. Tapa, what would your recommendation be that you're involved with?
for a project,
Yes. If you put you on the spot, but you're the one that's more involved. You know what the needs are.
Well, the Upper Town project is something we've been working on for some time, for different reasons, trying to get the funding, and it's a necessary project. However, we don't know what the low to moderate income results will be. We need the residents of the area. I think there's 57 residents. We need to determine if at least 51% of them are low to moderate income. Of course, you don't know that of any project until you go out and actually do the income survey. But as far as being ready to proceed with an application, aside from the income survey, that one is more than 50% done. The next one I would consider is probably the Tri-County Family Justice Center. That building is in need of some serious maintenance and repairs, in particular the back portion of it, where there's a lot of drainage and erosion issues going on, and the embankment, I guess, is starting to wash away. And at some point, we're going to run out of support for that building. And the county, and then the walls are cracking. It was a poorly built building to begin with. It needs roof repairs, or roofs, it leaks. And at some point in time, the county is going to have to address that, I guess, out of its general fund, unless a grant funding source for something like that is available, and we haven't been able to find anything yet, but the grant funding sources change from year to year, so I'm not saying there will not be any grant funding at any future time because they change, but either of those projects I think would work, but if I can, I'll turn it over to Mr. Madrid, and he can offer his comment if he has any in regard to Mr. Madrid project.
I hate to do this, but I'm going to agree with Mr. Tafoya, because the CDBG funding that is available is really to serve low and moderate income families. That area, and I believe starting from Legion Drive, historically has been funded by CDBG, all of Old National Road, all the way to the point where this other project is located, and everywhere in between have all been CDBG. So I think that population in the area is more likely to meet the LMI, low and moderate income requirements, than the other ones. The Justice Center also, as Mr. Tafoya said, is a limited clientele, meaning it doesn't matter what they make, it matters who they serve. And that clientele is a special needs clientele and would qualify under CDBG. The reason the one in Upper Town, I think, would score higher in the ratings because there's already a preliminary design. There's already an infrastructure improvement plan for the entire area. That matters a lot, especially when you're applying for either 500,000 or 750,000. That project would be eligible for the entire 750,000 because we already do have certified cost estimates. We don't have that for the other ones. In regard to some of the other projects that were discussed or brought forth today, as Mr. Tafoya said, the economic development funds that are available anytime. They're completely separate from these funds. Those applications do require a dollar for dollar match. They can be done in coordination with private parties. Those applications are intended to create jobs. And if you submit an application, the intent of the funding is to create one job for every $50,000 funded. So if you apply for $500,000, you should create 10 permanent jobs. They have to be sustainable. I think a good example of a project in progress right now is there's a private hotel in Taos. Town of Taos applied for that funding and got it. But they have an investor that was willing to put up $500,000 in his own personal money to get that hotel renovated and get these people employed. I think it's already underway. The hotel's already open. The grant that we're applying for is to serve a lower income population, and only requires a 5% match instead of $1 for each dollar. So I would recommend the Upper Town project.
Is that the road project you mean? In the San Antonio road improvements?
It's road and drainage. It's and I think one of them is San Lucero Road. I forget the name of the other one. It's like a horseshoe where you can come down off of 8th Street into Upper Town and then go back up on that other hill. It would encompass that whole horseshoe for street improvements and drainage. It would cover that area.
I so move, Mr. Chairman, for some to Upper Town.
Second.
Motion to approve the project, number town made by Commissioner Padilla, seconded by Commissioner Rivera. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much. What we'll do next is that the project needs to be ratified by a resolution. So we would bring the resolution back at the April meeting for signature, because a resolution has to be included with the application. Thank you.
This time, that concludes the public hearing. I need a motion to adjourn public hearing.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
By Commissioner Padilla, seconded by Commissioner Rivera. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I need a motion to continue on with the commission meeting today.
I make a motion to reopen the meeting.
Motion to open the meeting made by Commissioner Padilla, seconded by Commissioner Varela. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda, we have a minute resolution, 3-13-18 Citizen Participation Plan. Mr. Tafoya.
This is resolution number 3-13. These are, the next three items are housekeeping items required by CDBG. We have resolution number 3-13-18 procurement, and the community development block grant requires entities that apply for and receive CDBG funds to establish a procurement policy annually by resolution. So we, the procurement policy that we adopt is the state procurement code. So we would ask the Board of County Commissioners to adopt this resolution, number 3-13-18 procurement, which is a resolution adopting a procurement policy for the Community Development Block Grant Program.
Motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Varela, seconded by Commissioner Rivera. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 10, resolution 3-13-18, section 3. Mr. Tafoya.
The next item is resolution number 3-13-18 Citizen Participation Plan. And the again, the Community Development Block Grant Program requires that applicants for and recipients of CDBG funds adopt a citizen participation plan by resolution on an annual basis. We utilize the citizen participation plan exhibit that is provided by local government division. So we're asking the Board of County Commissioners to adopt this resolution, which adopts citizen participation plan with required elements for the CDBG program.
Motion to approve.
Motion moved by Commissioner Varela.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 10, resolution 3-13-18, section 3. Tafoya.
This is resolution number 3-13-18 section 3. And again, the Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG, requires applicants and recipients of CDBG funds to adopt a section 3 plan by resolution annually. This is a plan that encourages the use of small local businesses and the hiring of low-income residents. And we use the format, or the section 3 plan format that is provided by local government division. So we're asking the Board of County Commissioners to adopt that, and also ask the County Commission Chairman to sign the plan as well.
Need a motion to approve resolution 3-13-18, section C3.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Padilla. Second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Martinez. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Under item number 11, agreement care of prisoners contract with Guadalupe County and San Miguel County. Cornelio Othello.
Chairman, Commissioners, good afternoon. Before you say an agreement for care of prisoners between Guadalupe County and San Miguel County for us to house and care for inmates arrested in Guadalupe County. Guadalupe County currently does not have a detention center and are transporting inmates across the state for housing. Being a neighborly county, this would give them the opportunity to not only house counties in our area, but their district court is right in the city of Las Vegas next door here. So they've been transporting from all over the state to district court. So included in that contract is a monetary fee for us to transport their prisoners who would be housed in our detention center here to the district court. So their sheriffs wouldn't have to drive down from Guadalupe County and transport them to court. I am requesting approval of the contract.
Need a motion to approve the agreement between San Miguel County and Guadalupe County.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner Padilla.
Second.
Need a second?
Second.
Commissioner Martinez, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Agreement number 12, ratify FY19 CCWI grant application to NMDOT dated February 26, 2018.
Thank you, Yolanda Cruz with the DWI program. And we were notified by New Mexico Department of Transportation that we were eligible to apply for $7,386. We apply for this funding every year, and what this funding comes from is a $75 fee assessed to people with the court and at the courthouse who are convicted of DWI. And so that money comes back to the community. What the DWI Planning Council has decided to utilize that funding for, and this is what they've used it as long as I can remember, is to help run the Safe Ride program. As you know, there's not many options for people to get home other than drive or hopefully ask one of their friends or family members for a ride, but a lot of times people don't do that. So it's really important that in our community we have the Safe Ride program, and so that's the CDWI.
Motion to ratify the FY19 CCWI grant application.
Second.
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 Second by Commissioner Martinez, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Item 13, ratifying FY19 LDWI grant and distribution application to PFA in the amount of $210,609.
Thank you. And so the amount will go up a little bit with the time that we had to turn the application in. The House Bill 35 had not been passed or signed yet by the legislature and the governor. So the original amount that they told us on the distribution was $156,538. That has now risen based on the HB 35 to 178, almost $179,000. But we did have to turn in the application prior to that being known to us. So the grant amount that we requested was $54,071. And so we won't know the outcome of those until the end of April. But I'd like your approval and ratification on those amounts that we've applied for.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Martinez to approve. Second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item number 14, approval of bid award to 2018 local government road fund bus route project in Gainas Canyon. Mr. Madrid.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the item before you is in regard to the road improvement project in Gainas Canyon. And I'm going to say the word again because we've tried to do this before. And unfortunately, we do not have a better result for you today. We bid this job back in July. It came out, the two bids that we got were $40,000 and $90,000 over budget. We rejected those. We tried to go through the CES procurement route, and we found a contractor that ultimately couldn't perform the contract. So we bid it again, and we opened the bids on March 1st. And once again, the bids are about $30,000 over budget. So I'm here before you asking you not to approve item 14, but to reject it. Now, before one of you asks, well, what's the plan now? How are we going to get this done? This project is like a dog that nobody wants to adopt because it's labor intensive, it's on a narrow road, it's out of the way, and it's whoever gets it is probably not going to make a very large profit. So what we should have done last time, and what we're going to do this next time, is rebid it with alternatives. We have so much money to work with. This is a local government road fund. It's a school bus route funded program. So what we should have done and what we need to do this next time is bid it so that we can scale it and award the bid based on the funding that we have. We may have 5 rooms that need carpeting. We may only be able to afford 3 rooms. We have to structure our bid that way instead of all or nothing. That's what we've done. That's what we need to do differently this next time. That's our plan. So with that, I ask you for the motion to not approve item 14, but to reject it.
Make a motion to reject item 14.
Motion to reject item 14, made by Commissioner Lee. Second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor?
I'm going to probably get in trouble for that.
All in favor?
Rejecting the bid. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion fails.
The motion passed.
Motion passes, failed. All right, under item number 15, Public Works Division report for the month of February 2018. Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. Arnold Lopez here, of Public Works, with our report for the month of February. So we've been addressing road maintenance basically and improvements also within the different districts. So our motor grade operator number 1, Peter, has been over in the Gonzalez Ranch area still in Zacatosa. We've done some major improvements there, applying base course to eroded areas and bad areas as well. Also in Lagunitas, over in the Cerrito area on B28, we've applied base course there. We have some rocky or outcrop areas of rock that we've been addressing with base course material and resurfacing there. Also on B29A in the Sena area, we've done some improvements there to several roads, and actually had a project there also, one of our road revenue projects that was completed now recently within the village of Villanueva. We resurfaced that whole area, which is around the village, with base course, and that project is complete. Our motor grader operator number 3, Johnny Trujillo, has been over in the San Jeronimo area on A17, also on A18A, A16C, A19A over in San Pablo. We've addressed the Bernal area as well on B26A, in Los Vigiles area. All those roads up in that area in Upper Town got addressed and maintained, and also materials were applied on some of these areas as well. We're doing a pretty big project in Ojitos Frios, in addition to one of our road revenue projects that we accomplished recently. We were addressing residents there had concerns about the road not being wide enough, deep bar ditches, and they've come to commission several times, and we're taking care of all those needs in that area now. We've applied a lot of waste material to widen roads, to cover deep bar ditches. We're resurfacing with base course as well. There's quite a bit going on over there. We're adding culverts. That road is getting to be pretty impressive. If you all get a chance to drive that road, we almost have that whole loop complete. It's a nice project, but we're busy out there doing that and addressing anything else that comes up. Unfortunately, we're not getting any moisture, so it's been a little bit tough maintaining these roads because they're dry. A lot of times we don't like to turn roads loose basically because you're dealing with just dry dirt, so we're kind of cautious not to prevent or to bring up new issues basically by loosening these roads, so we're being cautious until we get moisture. We can definitely do some more maintenance out there. Yes, sir, exactly. Yes, sir. Yeah, we've done quite a bit of work out there. Looks like a super highway now, basically, pretty much all the way to the village.
Ms. I do have a question for you. I see Cerrito, El Cerrito Road here. Is this the major project that was on the books?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that one got completed.
You guys
That
finished
project,
it?
yes,
And
ma'am.
is this, did you finally go through Bernal or just through Bienvenido?
It's through the Bernal site, the
Bernal
project,
site,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, that's what we accomplished, was through the Bernal site. According to the residents, that's the area that they use more often. Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, with our area, there's a big portion of it that's state property and maintained by the state, but within our county area, it's in pretty good shape now.
And then just the Forest Service road that they go through also?
Yes, there's quite a bit of
That's
forest.
something that you take care of their part?
They do on occasion, yes. They've applied a little bit of materials, but not sufficient.
Do you guys have an agreement with them, like the county Forest Service agreement on that road? Or is it informal, it's just done, or how does that work?
No, they basically maintain their portion. They're responsible for forest roads. Yes, ma'am. Yes, and we're responsible for county.
Thank you very much for all of your work. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What's the progress on that?
C-23. So that one, we're just awaiting weather that's already been out. It's on our package 2 with Ockham Engineering. We're basically completing those projects. Same contractor has gotten all the projects, all the bids, and that is on the list. That'll be again, because of weather, it's pavement. So that one, we pushed it to the back end of these projects. So we're over in the Garita area now doing a big project out there. That's Napi Quintana's road that we all know of it. So we're out there doing that improvement. When that one's complete and weather pending, we'll start on 23.
You still have a lot of material.
Yes, unfortunately our crusher, we blew a generator on it. So we're getting quotes and we're gonna have to do some repair there. We're looking into possibly wiring it, hardwiring it electrically and avoiding having to use a generator. So that's an option. We're getting quotes on that as well. But we still do have material. We had a good stockpile and we're still able to provide materials out there.
So the 20,000 from the legislature for La Despensa, that will be put out probably June, after June, July?
The bonds will be sold in June, the agreements won't be ready until around September, so they would have to wait until those agreements are signed after September.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got 2 questions on that. Back to that Gallina's bid. What's the time frame to put it out, receive bids, and because that's also pavement, so it wouldn't have to.
Yeah, and luckily we went in there and we did all that pothole repair. So we're in good shape, so, we can, whatever it takes, usually advertisement and then bid opening, award and all that, possibly 2 months probably from this date.
It might be just in time for the good weather then.
Right.
Second question, I was asked that if the county would consider doing a 1-time or a 2-time a year blading all the way to the parking lot of the Sabinoso. I guess it's state road, whatever the county end, the rest is state, so no, it wouldn't be a violation thing, but like in the beginning of the season and perhaps after the rainy season's over, just as consideration.
Yeah, with the approval.
Wildland area.
The Sabinoso that just opened that we just got access to.
Yeah,
They're going to do a donation of a once or twice a year kind of thing if you're out in the area. They would really appreciate it.
Yeah, and we would have to do an exchange of service, but the person that's in charge, I came to see us a couple of months ago.
Right.
And we can work something out.
Fantastic.
Do an exchange of service between agencies.
Thank you for all your hard work, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I guess the wilderness,
The Department of Interior or...
yeah, Department of Interior.
Yeah, because
It's federal.
That's how we don't, the wilderness.
Right.
It's federal.
Right.
Commissioner Varela, I got some information for you on that road in question in Lower Colonias.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Have you completed your presentation, Mr. Lopez? Yes, sir. All right, item number 16, recommendation to approve revised job description of maintenance technician to maintenance technician / supervisor. Mr. Rios.
Mr. Chairman, the job description of maintenance technician needs to be revised to maintenance technician supervisor to reflect the changes to the San Miguel County organizational chart. At this time, I'm requesting approval of the revised job description of maintenance technician to maintenance technician supervisor.
Need a motion to...
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Revised job description.
Second.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Padilla, second.
Seconded.
Second by Commissioner Rivera. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 17, personal action or changes for the month of February 2018.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, personnel actions or changes which have taken place in San Miguel County for the month of February 2018 are submitted for ratification and approval by the San Miguel County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I'm requesting approval to ratify the personnel actions or changes that have taken place during the month of February 2018.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Commissioner Rivera, second. Second by Commissioner Rivera. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 18, bank transfers for the month of February.
Oh, no, he wasn't part of it. I'm sorry.
Mr. Garcia?
Good afternoon again. I'll be here for Ms. Bustamante. So I have a few transfers, a couple of payroll transfers. The first was February 15th, payroll detention center, $55,145.29. General fund, $181,725.77 was transferred to the payroll account. This was done on, the second one was done on the 28th of February. It was for the March 1st payroll. We had detention center, $53,486.46. General fund was $178,695.53, which was $232,181.99 to the payroll account. Had a transfer from the fire funds to the general fund in the amount of $37,450.30. We had, that was on the 16th of February. Another one on the 28th of February was general fund to detention center, $250,000. And finally, we had a wire transfer for the housing to Bernalillo County in the amount of $46,651. That was done on February 27th.
Item for action for information purposes only. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Item number 19, resolution 2018-03-13-F1 mid-year budget adjustment.
Okay, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, in the agenda, you're applying two different backups, and then I provided you with two other hard copy backups, so there's a total of 4 documents that we're going to be working off of. The first one, which was a hard copy one, is the one in which you guys will sign, and here I'm just making mention that we did meet with all the departments, or I should say most of the departments, to go over their mid-year budgets, and based on our meetings with them, we're providing you an 8-page document that shows each line item that is being modified with the current budget. Then another thing I should also mention is when I do submit this paperwork to DFA, I'm going to be making an adjustment. Right now, our fire funds are being reported to DFA under 2 different fund numbers, one being SR 222 and the other SR 209. The DFA is working on a new system where we have to upload information to them. And in order for us not to have to create an additional 13 funds for the fire districts, I touched bases with DFA, and it's okay for us to report all the fire activity under one DFA reporting fund. Internally, we'll still track them in detail, but I'm going to be making that change so in order to accommodate this crosswalk that they have. One of the documents that you have that's on the computer is an 8-page document. And what this is it shows what the original budget was at the beginning of the year, what the current budget is now, which may include like budget adjustments that were approved during the year and or line item transfers that were done, and then of course the mid-year changes. And then to the right is just something documenting what the increases and decreases were for that particular fiscal year. I mean, for these adjustments. Then another hard copy document that I gave you is this one that's kind of highlighted in yellow. This is a fund by fund document. So if we look at the general fund, which is the first fund, you'll notice that right now I'm requesting an increase in the general fund of $39,722.75 in revenues. Most of that revenues are tied to an insurance claim that we had for vehicles that were damaged by the hail. There was actually 2 incidences for that. So that's what part of that is. And then there's a reduction in transfers totaling $34,201.78. And then also an increase in the general fund of expenditures of about $52,615.75. Again, a bulk of that, or half of that increase in expenditures has to do with the insurance claims that we're going to have to end up paying for the vehicles. There's also some additional costs in there for like vehicle maintenance for our sheriff's department, a position that we are putting in there, a temporary position for the sheriff's office, a matching requirement that we had for a grant for our fire departments of about $9,000. But again, all the changes that were made are listed on this 8-page document. And so every fund that's highlighted in yellow, that's the adjustments that I'm recommending or being presented to you today. And if you have any questions on any of these, please let me know. And then another document, I guess, that I have in here is a 1-page document. This 1-page document is actually on your computer, and it recaps the general fund, just so you know. The first, and it's this 1-page document. And it shows what our revenues for the general fund are, breaks it up in a little bit more detail. We're expecting to receive $6.3 million in revenue in the general fund, and we're also expecting to expend close to $5.5 million in the general fund. We have transfers in of $63,107 to the general fund and transfers from the general fund to other funds of $1.3 million. With all this compiled, that is showing that we're using $450,000 more of our general fund than what we're bringing in. And then on the second column of this document, what I've listed are the funds that are all operating in nature. We have our general fund, our public works, our crusher, detention center, solid waste, and some of our gross receipt taxes that are pledged for revenue. And of all those, our incoming revenues for those particular funds are $11.6 million. What we're expending is $12.2 million, so we're expending $612,000 more than what we're actually bringing in for the fiscal year. And that's pretty much how it was set up at the beginning of the year. And a lot of the reasons that we're spending more is we have a lot of one-time expenditures that are taking place. And like we have close to $130,000 worth of capital outlay expenditures in the general fund. We have a comprehensive plan in here that doesn't happen repeatedly year after year. We have roughly $47,000 of capital outlay for our public services department and our detention center. We have some temporary help that is budgeted in here, a new temporary position for our sheriff's office, and then we also have the general fund grants that we talk about. And those are to the Samaritan House, to EDC, to the City of Las Vegas for the senior centers. Those aren't included in our recurring expenditures because if we don't have the monies, that's what we've kind of talked about. Those are programs that we'd have to figure out to remove because they can't fit within our recurring revenues. And based on that, we're able to balance the budget. But these are the recommendations that we're bringing you today just to get us through the rest of the fiscal year. And then just for you to know, we'll be meeting sometime in late April to go over our fiscal year 18-19 budget and hopefully have something to present to you during a special meeting in May.
All right, any questions for Mr. Miguel?
Move to approve.
I have a question. How did that new tax rate, is it already in effect? The new tax rate that came out, federal tax rate, does that affect anybody, any employees or us or anything?
Right, so it's just employment-wise. So Tyler, who's our computer company, actually upgraded our system and they loaded the tax rates, I think the first pay period within February. So in February, the first pay period, people should have noticed a change in their net pay, because they should have received more because of those tax rates being implemented.
Yeah, it doesn't affect our budget.
But it doesn't affect our budget. That's just employment taxes.
You're
And
paying
just
the
for
same,
our
we're
employees.
just seeing more.
You're seeing more because the tax rates are tiered differently and the percentages are a little bit lower than what they usually are for those tiers.
What about the insurances?
Well, and that's a good question. Insurances right now, as far as health insurances,
Health insurance?
right now they've been constant for I think this last fiscal year, maybe the other one too. I reached out to the General Services Department because they're the ones that we get our insurances from. We use them as a local public body, and I've asked them if there's going to be an increase for fiscal year 18-19, but at this point they really don't know, and it's kind of up in the air. So I'll be reaching out to them as we work on our 18-19 budget to see
What
the
percentage are we paying now?
Well, right now, there's different tiers. For a majority of our employees, the county is picking up 70% of the insurances and the employee pays 30%. But because of the Affordable Care Act, there's some calculations that we need to do to make sure that our insurances are affordable. So we have to base it on single coverage, and there's some other factors. I'll probably be coming to you guys again in July if the insurance is increased to kind of go over those tiers again. But we have some tiers that are 30/70, some 25/75, and some that are 30/70, 25/75, and 20/80. So our lower paid employees pay 20% while the county picks up 80% of the insurance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Need a motion to approve resolution 2018-03-13 FY mid-year budget adjustment. Approve. Motion carries.
Second.
By Commissioner Varela, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Olivari. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 20. Requesting authorization to contact Car and Rigs and Ingram CPA and advisors for the FY 17-18 fiscal year. Ms. Gonzalez.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we received a notification from the State Auditor's Office that we could proceed in soliciting somebody for this upcoming year's audit. Last year, we actually went out for RFP, which we're allowed to do for a 3-year term, and we're able to contract with the prior year auditors, provided we're given permission from the state auditors. And that's what I'm requesting us to do, is to enter into a second of a 3-year.
So moved.
Approved by Commissioner Olivari. Second. Second by Commissioner Varela. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 21, administration regulation governing accounting and control of fixed assets for San Miguel County. Give Ms. Gonzalez.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we've been following this policy, but really unofficially. We actually have a grant right now that requires there to be an official
approval of us adopting this particular regulation to account and control fixed assets within our entity. So we're adopting it in its full, but we are actually making an amendment to it. The law requires that any assets over $5,000 be capitalized, but the amendment that we will be making is that we're going to capitalize those items, but also regardless of cost, we're going to capitalize all vehicles, all trailers, and any weapons that the county may procure.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by
No, Muriel.
second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. We're on item 22, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Journal entry report for the month of January 2018. Gonzalez, informational purposes only.
Yes, sir. Yes. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, these are all the journal entries that were entered into our journal ledger either by my office and or the Treasurer's office during the month of February.
Question? Number 22, 3, cash balance report.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this is also for informational purposes, but this report reflects the December 31st, 2017 reconciled cash balances.
Any questions regarding the balance report? Item 24, receipt report for the month of January 2018, informational purposes only.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this report is also something that's run off of our system. All receipts, prior to the solid waste office moving to the Treasurer's office, there was 2 departments collecting funds, but now all collections take place in our county Treasurer's office. So the reason that this report appears a lot thicker than the other reports is what I'm assuming is it's tied to, I think it's tied to them running the payments through the miscellaneous report. So that's what this report reflects for all the receipts for the month of January 28th.
Any questions regarding the receipt report?
Thank you, Melinda, for your hard work.
Item 25, accounts payable report for the period of February 1, 2018 to February 26, 2018, January 2018, housing payment register.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this is a report that's also run up off our system of all the payments that have been made through our system. And then also a report from Bernalillo County showing all the payments that were made during the month of January to the landlords and or tenants of our housing program.
Any questions regarding this report?
I'll move to approve.
We'll move to approve by Commissioner Olivari, second. Any second?
Second that motion.
Maria, all in favor?
That was for the lack of a second.
Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Manager, do you need to...
Mr. Chairman, because the attorney isn't here, is this something pressing that we have to go to executive session in? I'd prefer to go to executive session with counsel. That's just my personal preference. Unless this is something really pressing that we really need to know about. I mean,
It is some, Commissioner,
It's a
you agree?
personnel issue that I need to address.
it's personnel, it's not a legal matter at all.
It's just personnel.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's personnel. Mr. Manager, regarding executive session, we're going to go into executive session.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman. Under limited personnel matters as permitted by NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1H2 as amended of the Open Meetings Act, more specifically personnel matters regarding specific county departments, and that would be the Sheriff's Department.
Any motion to declare the executive session?
So moved.
Commissioner Lee, second.
Roll call, can I?
Roll call, yes.
Roll call. Roll call, please.
Chairman Chris Nahat,
Here.
Vice Chairman Janice Varela,
Yes.
Commissioner Rock Ulibarri,
Yes.
Commissioner Arthur Padilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Maria Martinez.
Yes.
We can meet here. It's only gonna take like 10 minutes.